What's up, guys? Atapark here, and today with Mythic Tomb of Sargeras unlocking, I wanted to talk to you guys about changing difficulties within your raid group. We're going to talk about the mindset behind it, things that you should be looking for, and maybe some of the challenges that you're going to see along the way. So we're going to talk about two scenarios here. The first is when you are a raid lead, guild lead, whatever. You are somebody in a leadership position, and you are rating a specific difficulty. Obviously you're not doing mythic, but we'll say that you are the raid leader or the guild leader for a normal mode guild. And you find that your group or your guild wants more of a challenge. They want more of something. The second scenario that we're going to be talking about is the plan that my guild follows, which is whenever a new tier comes out, regardless of what it is, to get a feel for the layout, to get a feel for the basic mechanics, to kind of gear people up that maybe joined us late or are missing a few pieces or something happened and they weren't able to log in for a few weeks. We clear on normal, and then we bump it up to heroic, and then we bump it up to mythic. So these are the two scenarios that we're going to be talking about, and let's start off with that first one. You are, like I said, in charge of a normal mode raiding guild. You're the raid leader, you're the guild leader, you're somebody in a leadership position. And perhaps your guild, you can tell, is itching for more content. Maybe they are very vocal about it. Maybe you are seeing some of the signs, and we're going to talk about those here in a second. And you're finding that normal mode in this scenario is just too easy for you. So whatever the reasoning behind it, and again, we'll talk about that here in a second, your group wants to do more difficult content. So when do you know that your group is ready, and how do you go about making that transition from normal to heroic to mythic? Well, let's first look at signs that you are kind of ready, or you really need to move on within the difficulty selector. Obviously, if you are burning through bosses, if you are getting bored with the difficulty or the lack thereof, there's a pretty clear sign that you're ready for more. And what I mean by this is if you are every night, you are one-shotting bosses in normal mode, or you can tell that the tanks are starting to miss, important mechanics, or DPS are missing important mechanics, not because they don't understand them, because they've previously, for X amount of weeks or whatever, shown you that they can handle them because you've cleared this boss before, but simply because they don't care anymore. And you guys have seen this in Nighthold, where you can kind of ignore some of the mechanics. It's not that big of a deal. You can ignore some of the mechanics in Emerald Nightmare. You can ignore TOV because you outgear it, because you've done it a billion times, because you know what you can handle, and because you're flat out bored with it. Clear sign that you need to bump that difficulty up. If you find that you are clearing the raid but still have time left on that raid schedule, let's say that you are, you plan to raid 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week, but you clear, whatever that raid might be, Tomb of Sargeras, in 1 night, in 2 nights, and you have an extra day, you're probably ready for more. I mean, let's be honest. Do you want to put yourself in a scenario where you go, okay, guys, we're going to raid, we'll talk about my guild, Tuesdays and Thursdays every week, and you clear normal normal TOS rather, Tomb of Sargeras, that first night, and then that second night, that Thursday, your group goes, "Hey, boss man, what are we doing tonight? We're not raiding, or I don't know, alt run." Or, that's not something you want. Or, God forbid, you make it a little bit worse, where maybe you clear the majority that first night, and then you get in that second night, and let's say you raid, I don't know, we'll just make something up, 2 hours a night, 2 days a week, sure. 4 whopping hours of raiding. Very easy schedule, and you get in 30 minutes into that second night, you've already cleared content. Well, now your group is itching for something to do for the next 90 minutes. You have nothing planned. They've already set aside the time, that they could be spending it with significant others, going out and doing stuff, playing other games, whatever the case might be, and they've already committed to you. What do? You need to bump up the difficulty. If you find that your raiders are pugging heroic or mythic content with other groups, well, guess what? You're probably ready. So how do you jump into those higher difficulties? And we're not talking about, just right click and, change the difficulty. As a general piece of advice for almost everything that I tell you guys, and you guys that have watched a lot of my videos are going to know what I'm about to say. Before the start of the raid, before you even start clearing trash, or maybe while you're clearing trash, but certainly not before you you get to that first boss, you want to tell the group what's going on. Hey guys, I see that, some of you guys are pugging heroic, or I know that you guys are super bored, or hopefully, best case scenario, a lot of you guys have been super vocal in Discord and Vent, TeamSpeak, texted me, emailed me, whatever the case might be, talked to me in game, and you guys have said that you're really getting bored of normal TOS after 1 week, whatever, but you guys get what I'm saying. And you guys want to do heroic, or you guys want to do mythic. That would be the best case scenario. But tell them what's going on. Tell them your intentions. Tell them why you are wanting to and are planning to bump up the difficulty. Now, this is probably the most risky part of bumping up the difficulty in this scenario, where you have rated for several tiers, normal or heroic, and you're bumping it up a tier in difficulty within that raid, is the potential that some, hopefully not all, because hopefully you've been paying attention, you know what's going on, but some of the people that you have around are not going to be interested in running a higher difficulty. Whatever the reason might be, time commitment, skill commitment, they may just not be interested in it. They may not want the stress behind it. It's cool. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If the majority of the group wants to, though, this is where you need to decide. And this is, again, where it's going to get a little risky. So, do you give in to the majority of the group, the raid, the guild, and do what they want and support what they want, and you take charge and go, look, I know that 95% of you guys want to jump into heroic, so we're going to do it? Or do you go, look, I know that we originally set out when we built this guild and this raid group and this whatever, that we're only going to do normal, and that's all we'll do, and you guys can figure it out. Well, if you go with the majority, obviously you risk losing people who aren't able to commit to that higher difficulty. If you commit to that higher difficulty, you run the risk of losing people that aren't interested in doing more difficult content. Now, what do I suggest as a raid lead, and as a guild leader? Hopefully you guys know where I'm going with this. Go with the majority, because that is the whole point behind being a leader here. One of many responsibilities is your job, among many other things, is to push forward and to support and to really be the driver behind the group's want and the group's mindset. And if 90% of the group wants to do heroic, your job as the guild, as the raid lead, as an officer, is to push what the guild wants and support, your fellow leaders in getting that done. Now, you have some options. You can maybe set up an alt run or, an off night run or something like that, where people who maybe aren't interested in harder content can kind of tag along, or maybe even bring a person, one or two people, once you've cleared it, and, you can kind of carry them and let them at least experience it. Maybe get a few pieces of gear. That would be cool. So let's switch over and talk about what my guild does, which is clearing a set difficulty, moving up, moving forward, doing normal, doing heroic, doing mythic, something that has been pre-planned from the start. Now, like I've said several times now, my guild does this for a lot of different reasons. It gives us, I think there's a cat dying out there. It gives us a bit of extra gear for people that maybe switched mains, those that have joined late, those that maybe still need an item. Maybe people have gotten unlucky. maybe people took some time off, whatever. It gives us a chance to kind of grab a hold of a few pieces of gear that we may have needed. So the question again is, when do you switch? Now, most of the same stipulations apply to my guild doing the switch as, you doing a normal mode raid and then wanting more, higher difficulty. People are getting bored. If you find that your raiders are pugging with others, or that you're burning through bosses and, you have a lot of extra time, or you're simply burning through bosses, you, like my guild's plan, is to get your ass into heroic or mythic content. If you find that you are struggling, or maybe people still need a little bit of gear, or maybe even experience, split your raid schedule. That's what my guild does. For example, we will this week, Tuesday, today, by the time you guys are hopefully watching this, we will go through normal difficulty. And then Thursday, the plan is to switch to heroic for our second day in that raid schedule. We will continue to do this and push forward into mythic so that we will start the raid week doing normal, switch it over to heroic, do normal, switch it over to heroic, and then we're going to swap it around. We're going to do heroic on Tuesdays, maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now. Everybody should be decently geared. You should have your plus 15 mythic, et cetera, et cetera. You should have all that gear, and then switch it over to mythic and do the exact same thing. And this gives us a good opportunity to get gear and get experience and get people in there, and people know what to expect. So whatever you do for any of this, though, again, I'm going to preach to you to communicate. Don't just spring this on your guild or your raid group, as I did one time in Nighthold. I was super frustrated because we had brought in some new players, and I've talked to you guys and mentioned to you guys my frustrations with my group, with my guild. Partially a good part of it being my failures as a leader, some drama, etc. And then some simply just bad players that, some cancerous players that should not have been around. And I made the mistake one night of the group said, we want to do normal for a little bit longer because we know that we need a little bit of gear and we've struggled a little bit. And, we faltered because of drama and because, people left and switched and this and that. And I said, no, we're doing heroic. And people got pissed off, and rightfully so. It was something, I just sprung it on them. Don't do that. Don't spring anything on your players. Instead, give them a heads up, because if you just spring it on them and you give them no heads up, you're going to straight up infuriate your players. They're going to be pissed off, and they have every right to be so. And the reason for this is they don't know what's going on. They may have made plans already. They know that we're only doing normal this week. Well, I got my buddy Jim, and he and I are going to do, heroic difficulty or mythic difficulty on Saturday. And, I've already made plans, and I'm going to be his healer, and, the group's set and all this good stuff. And wait a minute, we're doing heroic tonight. What? When did we switch over to heroic? Well, now I got to let Jim know I can't go with him, whatever the case might be. So tell you guys what's going on and let them prepare beforehand. So all this is pretty easy, right? If your guild wants a challenge, make sure they're being challenged. If you want a challenge, make sure everyone is being challenged. But, once you find yourself not being challenged, step it up. But communicate. Communicate any plans, any changes, and everything will be okay. Hopefully you guys like what I'm saying here. If you do, you guys know the deal. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Both of these things encourage me a great deal to continue to make the content that you're looking at today. If you did not like the video, hit that thumbs down button. However, I would appreciate it if in the comment section below, you let me know what you did or didn't like. More importantly, I would say didn't like, because, I want to tune this to what you guys want to see. And until next time, guys, I'll see you.